Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Well, I guess Kim Jong-un's going to miss out on some frequent flyer miles because the meeting has been canceled. Funny thing that happens when someone who knows how to call a bluff takes over in the Oval Office. It's Todd Herman. Great honor to fill in for Rush Limbaugh. Thanks to my team in Seattle for getting here early, the team in New York. All around Foggy Bottom. Right now, it's what we call the State Department in Washington, D.C., Foggy Bottom. There are people sprinting left and right, tearing clothing off, tearing posters off the wall, panicking because the predictable United States response for years to things like Kim Jong-un has been, well, what are we really after? Right? Are we really after lasting peace? Is that what we really want? Really want to see disarmed North Korea? Is that what we're looking for? What are they actually after in those circumstances? What they're actually after is a piece of paper. And barring a piece of paper, a press conference. Barring a press conference, a tweet, a statement. Something they can point to say, look there, we have delivered upon kind intentions. And for years, that has been the modus operandi in Washington, D.C. and around Foggy Bottom. So I guarantee they are puzzled. Wait, you've proactively canceled the meeting. Yeah. And the president gave a fine statement on this just now in writing. Included in that prayer is that we'd never have to use the world's most formidable nuclear array. Included in that, the statement to Kim Jong-un. This is on you. You can join us whenever you like. You can join modernity. And what is so incredible in the down is up world in which we live, Have you looked at Twitter? Now, I'm not saying that you should distract yourself from the Rush Limbaugh program to look at Twitter, but you can probably do two things at once. You're conservatives. Go examine the left and the response to this. There are people cheering Kim Jong-un on. I got to imagine that gives incredible comfort to people who have escaped the North Korean prison state to see American leftists cheering on Kim Jong-un because they feel this is some sort of victory for him. Well, it's certainly not a victory for his country. It may be a PR spike because of the way the media is going to want to treat this, but do you think anyone in the United States, anyone who has a sane, functioning brainstem in the United States, looks at this as a failure from the Trump administration perspective? I don't. The meeting was not set up for success. The meeting was not set up to be something that people would take seriously. Kim Jong-un wasn't taking it seriously. And so here we sit. It's been canceled. I want to congratulate the president on doing this. It is a weird time we live in. I mentioned the left. Now, those who heard me have the honor to fill in for Rush before, you should know that I'm sitting here in the heart of the liberal beast. And I say the liberal beast in all seriousness. I work out of Seattle. I don't live in Seattle specifically. But Rush gave a morning update discussing the latest assault on the free market here. It was something that the Seattleites called a head tax. And it was a tax on jobs. And I kid you not. Now, there's some context to this. First, I want you to hear Rush.
A few weeks ago, I told you about the huge tax that Seattle City Council planned for its businesses. Amazon, the city's largest employer, would be hardest hit. Now, Amazon would owe an additional $500 per employee on top of the taxes they pay already. The new tax would supposedly solve Seattle's housing crisis, but it wouldn't. Now, as in other liberal-run cities, homeless camps, they're everywhere. And thanks to Seattle's massive overregulation, available housing cannot keep up with demand. Rents are astronomical. Now, whenever liberals create problems, do they fix their policies? No, they punish the productive. And this new tax targeted successful businesses, which Seattle liberals assume are just rolling in extra dough and will roll over and pay any new tax. But Amazon didn't follow the script and bend over and grab the ankles. Instead, they immediately halted their Seattle expansion plans. For once, officials backed down a little. Instead of $500 per employee, the city council voted to only tax big companies $275 per employee. But here's a warning for Jeff Bezos. The liberals who run your town are going to be back for the rest of it. Taxes are all they know. Your success made you a target. and you're going to stay a target, guaranteed, no matter how big a liberal you are, no matter how proud they are of you owning the Washington Post, they're going to get you, Jeff.
It's a rare moment when Rush doesn't know how right he is. And he actually does not know how right he is. I'm going to play a little clip for you. This happened at a town hall event out here where initially people weren't allowed to speak. Literally, no, only the politicians were allowed to speak. This woman eventually was one of the people who got to speak. There's a longer version of this, but listen to the statement. It was met with applause.
Amazon is ISIS.
Did you know that? So maybe this tax is really a tax against ISIS. That woman was met with applause in this area, stating that Amazon is ISIS. I give you these facts so that you understand the importance of defeating the left. And Rush has made this very, very clear. We're in a cold civil war. And people who are willing to state that Amazon is ISIS are willing to state just about anything. The fact of the matter is, to understand this at another level, this tax that they were going to do on jobs, they cut it down, as Rush said in the morning update. Do you know what it's to fund? It is to fund legalized heroin. No, I am not kidding. Seattle has suffered an influx of people coming here because we have decriminalized heroin. And if you think I'm kidding, come out here, but wear steel-toed boots. Whenever the EIB team's here, I always tell them, put on the steel-toed boots, do a needle scan of any area. We have to scan our soccer fields. I'm not making any of this up. We have to, as parents, scan soccer fields and football fields and baseball fields before the kids play because we don't want another kid to get stabbed with a needle. So that money would be used to fund government-funded heroin dens where nurses watch people shoot up. Among the other things they claim serves homelessness. But it gets worse. It gets far worse than this. Bezos has not learned this lesson. So, yes, he stood up to the Seattle City Council. He stood up, in this case, to leftism. But I don't even think he understands what Rush said and how correct it is that he's still in the targets. Do you know that Amazon is attacking, and this is according to William Jacobson, who runs Legal Insurrection. It's a site I read very often. I've heard Rush reference it as well. They've attacked him and his website and taken him off of the Amazon Associates revenue flow. Now, this is a site that is written by lawyers, run by lawyers and academics. It's hardly fake news. But this is endemic of Amazon not understanding that eventually you become the meal. In leftism, they're going to partner with you until you become the meal. And this stuff's getting exported. This point of view is getting exported. It starts on a minor basis like here. We have a woman in town that we call the Bhagwan Sri Sawant. If you heard about the Bhagwan in Oregon who imported a bunch of people into a small town, took over the town, then he decided he wanted to take over the county, he imported homeless people. Literally imported homeless people. And I'm not kidding, gave them free beer. There's a Netflix documentary about that. Gave them free beer so they could stick around and then vote to take over the county. That's what this woman, Bhagwan Sri Sawant, does here. Is she literally imports street people, not homeless people, not people who happen to be down on their luck. There's all sorts of beds here. Now, speaking of Netflix, you know the lurch to the left of Netflix. They hired Susan Rice. Now, Susan Rice, as you probably know, is an expert on YouTube videos. Now, she was the person who found the YouTube video that was responsible, of course, according to the Clintons and Susan Rice, for Benghazi. So in that way, she became a real expert on streaming video. But you know, of course, that there's an 8-figure deal that President Obama and Michelle Obama have now signed with Netflix. Couple of observations on this. One is, it's a good thing they're the only African-American filmmakers and producers in America. Because I had thought, and perhaps this is a misconception, I had thought that there was an entire generation of African-American filmmakers and screenwriters, etc., waiting for that deal from Netflix, but I'm wrong. So maybe they will now inspire African-Americans to create film. But the other thing that's great news about this is it does away with the need for the award shows. Because we know who's going to win the Golden Globes. We know who's going to win the Emmys. I got a quick peek at some ideas of some of their first shows. There's a documentary. It's called Grandma. She Does You Like White People Will Do You. Sort of a societal look at this. I understand Stormy Daniels set to co-produce that. There's a reality TV show the Obamas are working on. It's called The Round File. This is fascinating. It follows a group of Obama operatives embedded in civil service jobs in D.C. as they fight for the resistance. Other one is a comedy the Obamas are working on. Hey, YouTube, I left my friend in Libya. Hilarious. And the last one's a drama, a touching drama, a coming of age, sort of a second act in life. It features it's called Joe, My Joe. And it's a kind of rapey older politician who's given to strange outbursts. He decides to run for one more major office, but he is running against another guy who writes rape poetry. And they go back and forth on this battle, trying to be the leftists of the left. Sounds utterly fascinating. It's Todd Herman in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB Network. What an incredible honor to fill in on the Rush Limbaugh program. 800-282-2882 if you'd like to be on the show. I want to thank Rush and the team for having me on. It's Todd Herman. Hey, did you get the Limbaugh letter? All right, this is an act of patriotism. It's also a countable way to show your support for Rush, and it drives the left nuts that Rush has been able to conquer digital. In the upcoming June issue of the Limbaugh letter, Rush reviews the intrepid Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert. He's written a devastating takedown of Robert Mueller, has a storied record of staunch and vocal defense of conservatism. You order today, you get one issue and Rush's new bonus report, The Joys of Conservatism, for free. That's one to share with the family. And with Father's Day around the corner, Limbaugh letter makes a great gift for Dad. It does. Limbaugh letters available in print and digital at www.rushlimbaugh.com. John in Springfield, Massachusetts, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program with Todd Herman. John, welcome.
Good afternoon, Todd. Could you talk, since you're from Seattle, could you talk about the effect of the $15 minimum wage on the Seattle restaurants and businesses? We don't hear anything about that on the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, the effects, John, have been immediate. There have been businesses who announced within weeks of that move that they were shutting down. There's been small restaurants that have shut down. There's been larger businesses who've rearranged staff time. One of the things you should know here, are you familiar with Seattle economics and how they work, and liberal economics and progressive economics at this far of the left coast?
Not as far as Seattle is concerned, but I understand, the leftist attitude towards business.
All right, so the University of Washington put out a study, because they just studied this from an academic basis, saying, hey, wow, this is harming people more than it's helping. Hours have been reduced, benefits have been reduced, people are splitting shifts, etc. That came out, the city council here panicked, and they hired Berkeley specifically to counter that, so they did an outcome-based study that said, no, it doesn't harm anything. Here's the economics of the left here that is expanding. This is so fascinating. This is the same city that taxed ammunition and guns, so there'd be less of it. They tax soda pop, so there'd be less of it. They tax carbon, so there'll be less of it. They tax parking, so there'll be less of it. Then they tax jobs, so there'll be more of it, right? Because jobs, labor, that's the one thing that is immune to any form of price increase. And at the same time they do that, they subsidize heroin. And we're not the only city. New York City wants to get into the race to the government-funded heroin dens, etc. So this stuff is expanding. I mean, you've got to have this sort of madness a little bit in Massachusetts, although Boston's done better with the heroin problem than Seattle has.
Well, what's happening is right now in the Massachusetts legislators, they're floating the $15 million minimum wage, and all the unions, SEIU, are clamoring for it. But again, they're blind to the effects of it, and that's why I'd like you to talk about it. That's a great discussion.
Yeah, well, the fact is, over here, the effects of it were, as I say, they were immediate. But I'll tell you another effect of it that you may not know, and that is the fact that the unions that pushed for this, the unions that wanted this, immediately got a waiver from it. So they were released from the effects of this, John. They did not have to pay this. I want to thank you for the call, John. Thanks very much for being on the EIB network. I'll give you a little bit more of an explanation of that. They go push for these laws, and this is going to happen in your city. This is why we fight. This is why we fight so hard. The unions that push for these laws, the minimum wage laws, they then turn around and they go to businesses, and this is the con job. They go in and say, hey, you don't like paying that $15 per hour minimum wage? Well, join the union. Come our way. We can make that whole problem disappear for you. And this is the great con of big labor in this country. And what happened here is a sign that you are winning. What happened here across this country, there are cracks appearing in the great leftist wall of stupid. If it can happen here, it can happen across the country. People are beginning to sniff reality. The steel or iron workers here stood up. They went and challenged the leftists, right? And it is going to happen around the rest of the country as people begin to see the fruits of all of this and the madness. Did you see that the president now cannot block people on Twitter? A judge has said that the president from his private account cannot block people on Twitter because they have a right to view his tweets. It's a First Amendment issue. Now, I can get super hot and bothered about that, but I thought I might take this another way. How is it that schools can block this program? Right? If Twitter is a public platform, I dare say the Rush Limbaugh show has a greater combined audience than Twitter. And don't talk to me about the unique numbers of Twitter users. Those are irrelevant. It's the people who actually use it. And the judge says it's for public good. Well, this show's for public good. So I say we act upon this immediately and begin to pipe conservative media now into the schools. They've got the Channel 1, et cetera. Why do we not have that as well? Right? We should take advantage of this. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the show. Chris, Sarasota, Florida. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh Show. Todd Herman filling in.
Thank you so much for taking the call. I'm a
Yes, of
Gold Star
course.
dad, and I just wanted to extend a meaningful Memorial Day. It is one of those holidays that Gold Star families across the country always struggle with because it's, for us, never a celebration. It is a time of remembrance, and it's not Veterans Day. And I know that you understand it. I know Rush does, but I wish more people understood that I miss my son. And every Gold Star family and the events to which we will attend are about those who gave their life. It isn't for my dad who flew gliders in World War II and died at 86. It's for my son who was at 29 years old, killed by the bad guys in Iraq.
What was your son's name?
Staff Sergeant Joshua Ryan Hager.
A proud man and a proud father.
Army
I'm so sorry, but I'm so thankful. I'm thankful that you took the time to call. And you're so right about Memorial Day that people get this confused. But you know what, Chris? When you ask the guys who come home, it's almost endemic. You go say, you tell them you're a hero. And almost universally, they say, no. Pardon me, I'm going to get emotional. The real heroes are like your son, and they didn't come home. So I just, is God comforting you? Are you okay?
That came back.
Yeah.
Is both a blessing and it's such a struggle because so many of them struggle mightily.
I know they do. Hey, Chris, God comfort your family. And I thank you for bringing that moment of sobriety. Of course, the least we could do. Thank you very much for the call, Chris. The ones who came home are the heroes. You could talk to any veteran, and they will tell that to you. I'll tell you a story when we come back. That my young daughter once met a World War II veteran on the very first honor flight. I'll tell you that story when we continue in the Rush Limbaugh Show. Todd Herman, honored to be on the EIB network, filling in for the great Maha Rushy, who sets the standard for talk radio every day. I admit it takes a little bit of even this is the fifth time I've been honored to do this. It takes a little while to relax into it. It's the enormity of the seat. Man, there's so much to get to. 10 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock Eastern, second hour of the show. Jim Jordan's going to join us. The histrionics, the methods that the DOJ and the FBI are using to hide what they did are, in my judgment, I'm nearly 51. I have never seen a bigger scandal. And Jim Jordan's going to address this. They've put together a act that they want to put in front of Congress. They want a second inspector general to investigate because the DOJ cannot investigate themselves. We're going to get to that next hour, and it's going to be a blockbuster. So you want to hear that. Well, I get into some further news. I do want to jump off this call just a little bit we had from Chris from Sarasota, Florida. One of the things they're telling me, the team in New York, is that he lost his son. His son is a hero. He's a Gold Star dad. His son was killed by the bad guys. Before he died, our own Rush Limbaugh apparently sent him cigars. And when that young man, these things make me emotional. When the young man's body was brought home, when he was brought home, and his father inspected his effects, he had those cigars. And I'm told that Rush has one of those cigars that he keeps in remembrance of that young man. One of the things that the press will never give this president, and can you sense this with him, with our president? His level of affection for the military, I think it borders on astonishment. I think he looks at young men like that who serve in that capacity, who put everything on the line. I think our president looks at them with astonishment and amazement, and I see in him, when he speaks to them and of them, an endless form of compassion for them. And I think he takes so seriously his job of protecting them that you look at North Korea and the president today saying the meeting is off and Kim Jong-un is going to miss out on the frequent flyer miles. And he's not going to get to go to Singapore because the president says this is not being taken seriously. I think he takes the charge so seriously of putting American lives at risk. It shows in the tactics. It shows in the tactics what we had Barack Obama for years saying, look, we can't bomb ISIS's fuel suppliers. Those are just fuel trucks. And General Mattis comes in. Thankfully, the president brought him on board and says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and bomb those fuel lines. And if the guys driving the trucks don't want to be bombed, maybe don't work for ISIS. And the progress there is the progress for our troops. That's absolutely a fact, an observable, objective fact that the media cannot get around to noticing. And yes, Memorial Day around the corner. Chris from Sarasota, Florida, reminded me of something. I made the point that so often veterans, when you speak to them, if you're a veteran, you probably say the same thing. The real heroes didn't make it home. When I lived in Washington, D.C., for a short time, my family came and joined me. And we were there when the first honor flight came in. We really were. We were at the World War II Memorial, and we saw some buses arriving with older gentlemen. And I didn't know what they were. Someone told us those are the first honor flights. Men and women coming to see the World War II Memorial, a memorial to their efforts. And so we stuck around and wanted to watch this. They arrived at the memorial and began going and touching the memorial. Have you been there? You should go. It is an extraordinary memorial. By the way, paid for by largely private funds, which is what made it so savage when Barack Obama decided to fence it off during the government shutdown. You know, he spent more money to fence that off. One of the greatest moments in history of all activism was when guys who stormed the beaches from Normandy encountered the Barack Obama barricades, the Brockocades, and they kicked them over. Guys got out of their wheelchairs. All of a sudden, Obama was a miracle healer. Guys got out of their wheelchairs, kicked those down. We're not stopping us. We're going to go see our memorial. So we were standing there watching this, and the people arrived. Not the kicking down of the barriers, that was later, but the first honor flight arrived. My daughter at the time, I think, was about 5 years old. Beautiful, beautiful young girl, if I say so myself, blonde hair, blue eyes, wearing I kid you not, I have a picture, an American flag T-shirt. And there was a gentleman in a wheelchair, and he had medals. He had his full dress uniform on, and he had medals. And he is sitting there watching, but he had not approached the memorial. And my daughter said to me, Dad, is that man a soldier? And I said, yeah, he was a soldier, honey. And she said, what are the things on his chest? I said, well, those are medals. Those are recognition of things he has done for this country. And she said, is he a hero? And I said, well, let's go ask him. And so we walked over. We walked over to meet with the gentleman. And my daughter came up to him and said, hello. And he smiled. And she said, my dad says you're a soldier. And he laughed and said, oh, I was a soldier. And she said, pointed at his coat. She said, you're a hero. And he got tears in his eyes, and he looked up at me. And he said, no, honey, the heroes didn't come home. They gave their lives. And he said, may I put you on my lap? May I pick you up? And he did. And people wanted to take pictures. I asked him, please don't. I want this to live in my memory. He looked at her and said, you remind me of my little girl. We're walking away. I said to my daughter, why do you think he fought? Why do you think he risked his life? And she said, well, Daddy, he had a little girl. So remember that on Memorial Day. We talked earlier about the Trump and the Twitter platform and a judge coming up and saying the president cannot block his political critics on his own private Twitter. Speaking of the president as an affection for troops, affection for free speech. James on the road driving to Seattle. James, I hope you brought the steel-toed boots and plenty of double-layer gloves to scan for needles.
Oh, I got one of those metal detectors, too. You know, I'm just going to go scanning the streets up there. It's going to be it's a mess, man. The West Coast is a mess.
Yeah.
No, what I want to ask you about is, so Twitter now is, or the judge is saying that Trump can't block anybody from reading his tweets. But Twitter frequently deplatforms people who have views that they don't agree with. So
absolutely.
where is the judge saying that Twitter can't do this? If it really is free speech, if it really is public square, well then, you know, why not? Why not prevent Twitter from banning users?
Look,
and I'm not talking about bots here. I'm talking about real people.
Yeah. And look, I say enter into this. I want Twitter to run Twitter's business, but Twitter is playing this game, and the way they block, I've seen social media blocks. I'm not kidding, James. I've watched, let me give an example of social media blocks I've seen, because it's not just Twitter, it's Facebook. I have some friends who've fought the battle to keep men out of women's showers and out of girls' showers. Another gift, by the way, from the West Coast to you all, that started here. That battle to keep men out of women and girls' showers, they fought that. And there are men who think they're women who threaten to rape my friends to teach them, because nothing will get your head straight like being raped by a transsexual. So they've offered to do that and threatened to do that. The women have pointed that out and made videos of the threats and said, here's what's being allowed, trying to get those sites blocked. Facebook blocked the women. They blocked the women. Wow. Twitter's done similar things where they blocked the women who are saying, hey, we're being threatened with rape over here. They have kept the pro-rape sites up. So when they start to play this game, we're always saying, you know, the right should invent something else. The right should invent something else. Well, Twitter is going to practice lawfare. They're going to go out and do this. They're going to sue. I'm torn on this. I am, because I am pro, obviously, free market, pro First Amendment. But I do say, okay, it's a public platform. Then how about this, Twitter? How about you reveal your shadow banning? Do you know what shadow banning is, James?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, there is some good news with this whole thing that not a lot of people are hearing about. There is actually a lawsuit out there right now that will prevent Twitter from deplatforming people. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have. And look, I'm torn on this. I'm open to persuasion because I want businesses to run their business. And James, thanks for the call, particularly from Seattle. It means a lot to hear from someone from the hometown. But Twitter they're not an equal platform. Everybody knows they're not an equal platform. And since it's been ruled a public platform, here's what I think we should do is rush into this, and let's test this theory. Let's take lawyers and rush into this and move ourselves into this space. And let's let Twitter decide. You want to be a public platform? You want what comes with that? Well, we'll help you get that. Be something that we can work out. When we come back on the Rush Limbaugh Show, you heard about the NFL compromise. I've been talking to people who played in the NFL and listened to some of the statements on this. And I understand Bernie Sanders has some thoughts on that. We'll also get to more of your calls. Love to talk to you across the country. 800-282-2882. It's Todd Herman, honored to fill in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB Network. Hey, welcome back to the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. The phones are open, 800-282-2882. And as someone who does a local show, I can't tell you how thrilling it is to talk to people across, as Rush would say, the fruited plain. You know about the compromise, of course, with the NFL. And the compromise is this, that players who don't want to honor the national anthem by standing, they can stay inside the locker room, which is sort of the way it used to be. All the players stayed inside the locker room. If you're on the field, you need to honor the national anthem. Of course, the left is over this, saying this is not what we pay for. This is not what we pay for to see in football. The left wants to see the kneeling. Now, I am a fan of sometimes taking instances like that and just applying them to the real world. Most of us will never be professional football players, try as we might. How would that work at your job? Have you tried that particular tactic at your job? If your boss tells you, hey, I'm going to need you to work late today, just kneel. And see if that communicates anything to your boss. And I can see a little dramedy on this. You okay? You just drop something and you don't respond. Hey, are you kneeling?
I'm going to stay here until I don't have to work late.
You're fired.
Well, I'd like you to rethink that.
No. That's how things work in the real world. I have thoughts later on how Bernie Sanders might view this. Hey, it's turned into a day people want to talk about Memorial Day. Well, I'm not one to turn that down. I got a comment on Twitter earlier, someone pointing out that he served. He said, hey, we do not want to be called heroes. Those of us who came home, we can't stand it because we know that the heroes got left behind. You heard the call earlier from Chris from Sarasota, Gold Star dad, lost his son who had been sent, I get emotional on these, had sent cigars from Rush Limbaugh. Carol, Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in.
Yes, I felt very strong with the father. I lost a brother in the Korean War at Pork Chop Hill. He did not return back home. His name was Benny Ray Warner, and he was a very good person, and we really have missed him. And yes, Memorial Day is for our loved ones and all servicemen who did not come home.
When he was serving over there, your brother, Benny,
yes.
How old were you?
5.
You were 5?
Yes, I was the youngest in the family. And yes, I remember the day they came to our house to tell my parents.
Oh, you were there? Yes, I was there, and I turned to my sister and I said, why are they here? They're telling them that Benny was killed. And I said, no, you're lying to me. I looked again, and I saw my mother pacing the floor with her hands on her face, crying. And then the next thing I remember about the situation was the funeral in July of 1953. And in our memory of those who did not return, just remember them very strongly on our Memorial Days. Yeah, and, it saddens me to some degree that it's become a day of barbecues, and yet that's the freedom to live the way that we do. That's why your brother was there, and we need to balance that, but it needs to be a return to that remembrance. Thank you, Carol, for sharing that with us. I appreciate it very much. Robert, Yuma, Arizona. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Hi, Robert.
Hey, thank you. Hey, I just want to reverse the thank you for the service that you're doing, carrying the baton for Rush very well.
You were very kind. You're a 22-year veteran?
Yes, sir. I served in a combat Marine in Vietnam.
Welcome home, and thank you for that. Are you? How are you doing?
My father was a survivor of Iwo Jima, and that's the reason I'm alive.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, it's important for me to convey to you guys, Rush Limbaugh and yourself, that your service to this country is truly a service.
It's difficult for me to hear that. And I want to tell you, I am honored that you would say it, but it is difficult for me to consume that. I'll tell you why. There's no chance for me or Rush to be able to do this without you, because there are those throughout history who would shut these programs down. I mean, there are leftists in this country who still would, love the day they could shut Rush down. Local folks like us, we don't matter as much, but the right to do what we do is American exceptionalism. I've reflected on this, Robert, that shows like this are a sign of American exceptionalism. Rush has made a legacy and a financial legacy based upon his thoughts and the way he relates with people. So it's very kind for you to say, clearly I don't want to get into a contest of who's the bigger hero. You're going to win that, and I'll just insist on it. I want to tell you again, thank you. Welcome home, Robert from Yuma, Arizona. What an honor. Thank you very much. How do you deal with that? I'll be honest with you. The talk radio for me has been a dream my entire life. It has, since I first heard the great departed Paul Harvey. And it really became a dream the first time I heard the EIB network. Am I a Rush baby? Yeah, wouldn't you be? Wouldn't you be if you were a conservative who did talk radio? Yeah, you would be. All right, more as we continue on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in on the great EIB network. Hey, thanks for listening to the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in, and I'll say it again, it's an honor. The American servicemen and women on Memorial Day. The callers have taken this here, and I'm grateful for it. There's a plan for the show, but when you get a call like you did that starts this discussion, I still think there's some things that need to be said. I have met a number of veterans who have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I watch from time to time because I simply am astonished at the bravery. Like our president, I think, is astonished by the bravery of the troops. I watch Lone Survivor, that scene where they keep telling each other, I'm good. I'm good, right? As they're shot, their lungs are collapsed. I'm good. I'm good. If you're not good and it's not good, will you reach out? You talk to somebody. We love you. We don't want you to suffer that way. Will you not suffer that way and reach out? We'll come back next hour. Jim Jordan, congressman, will address what is the biggest political scandal in our history. Let me do the reverse and welcome you and thank you for putting up with a rank amateur like me filling in for the great Rush Limbaugh. Number's 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Last hour, and we'll get into this hour, there's one note I want to make. Callers came in, joined the show, started talking about Memorial Day and their beloved family members who fell in the line of duty. Heroes, all of them. I want you to know something about this Limbaugh audience. On Twitter, people have now listened, and I want the families to hear this. People have listened to the names of your loved ones who fell in service to this country, and they are finding the graves online, and they are asking that on Memorial Day, their fellow Rush Limbaugh listeners go and honor your loved ones. That's who drives this show. It's my honor to bring on to the Rush Limbaugh program a true conservative and a guy fighting a very, very difficult battle and doing a brilliant job of it, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Congressman, welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in.
Todd, good to be with you, brother.
Hey, I'm glad you called me brother because I've always felt that way about you. I've never got to meet you when I worked in D.C., but Congressman,
you too bad. I wish we would have got to visit.
Well, sometime we will. I just don't go to D.C. anymore.
You're a smart man, right? Stay out of the swamp.
Just don't get any on you when you're back there. Absolutely. You've succeeded in maintaining yourself in that town. That's so hard to do. I'm thrilled to see you fighting back against the DOJ and the FBI and the refusal to respect the co-equal branch of the Congress with information. What's the latest on that, Congressman?
No, you're exactly right. Rod Rosenstein wasn't elected to anything. He's never had his name on a ballot. And the way the founders set this great place up, the greatest country ever, is it's separate and equal branches. They wanted the legislative body, the congressional body, to be the one closest to the people. We have an oversight duty. And when they don't give us the information we're asking for, Chairman Nunes is asking for stuff in the intelligence area, Judiciary Committee folks like myself are asking for information that's relative to the overall investigation of the Clinton how the Clinton investigation was handled in Trump-Russia, and they just drag their feet and don't give us information. More importantly, Todd, we've caught them hiding things. They hid the fact that Peter Strzok spent $70,000 on some table. They hid the fact that Peter Strzok, it was redacted in the copies they gave us from DOJ, that he was friends with Judge Contreras, one of the FISA judges, also happened to be the federal judge who heard Michael Flynn's case.
Yeah.
The guilty plea was there. To trust them that they can investigate themselves and we don't need a second special counsel? Give me a break.
Yeah, and you've written the House resolution and are involved in pushing this House resolution to get to that second IG to investigate this. Congressman, I want to make this a human equation. I'd like to get into more of the details. The increasingly, slightly less redacted, and your team having to go to a secret room and look at this. My audience on my show, Rush's audience, we're deeply frustrated. We're Congressman, we're angry. Do you get angry at watching what is a non-elected branch attempt to play you this way? Are you able to contain your emotions?
No, of course you get mad, because the American people get mad, and appropriately so. And it was months that we learned the IRS was targeting people for their political beliefs. Fast forward to this FBI scandal where you had the top 5 of the top people at the FBI who've either been fired or demoted or reassigned. I mean, we're talking about James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Jim Baker, general counsel, demoted, reassigned, Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence, demoted, reassigned, Lisa Page, FBI counsel, demoted, reassigned. These people ran the Clinton investigation, launched the Russian investigation, took the dossier to the court, didn't tell the court. So, of course, people are ticked off, and yet the DOJ keeps saying, don't worry, this is the way we've always done things. We can handle it. Ongoing investigation. You can't see it, Congress. We can investigate ourselves. If we did anything wrong in the first place, we can look at it. No one's buying it anymore, particularly when we've caught you trying to hide information from Congress. So I don't like special counsels. Nobody does. But you tell me another remedy. Jeff Sessions has said you only have special counsels under extraordinary circumstances. If what I just described isn't extraordinary, somebody tell me what is. 5 of the top people either fired, Comey fired, McCabe fired for lying 3 times under oath. All these other people demoted, reassigned. If that's not extraordinary, what is?
Right. And Congressman Jordan, you mentioned the IRS scandal. I want to point to that, and I want to point to the meetings that the IRS director had, consistent meetings with President Obama. More meetings, I think, than his national security team, if I recall directly.
Yeah.
And it strains believability, Congressman Jordan, when I see the phrase, the White House is running this investigation. Am I correct that the DOJ, the FBI, has also redacted enough information that you guys can't quite pin down what investigation the White House was running, that it might have been the investigation into the Trump campaign?
Yeah, we don't know. Again, that's why we want this information in an unredacted form as a separate and equal branch of government entitled to do our constitutional duty of oversight. We want that. Remember the September 2nd text message between Strzok and Page where they say, POTUS, President Obama, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Now, the operative word there is everything. That's a broad category. And if we can't tell exactly what it refers to, but everything in September of 2016, that's important. That's leading up to the election. That's after we've had the text message between these same 2 individuals where they talk about the insurance policy that was discussed in Andy McCabe's office. So that's why we need this information. And now we're at the point where, you know what? You're dragging your feet on the information. We're going to move ahead. We're going to start deposing people. We're going to start deposing Page and Strzok and Baker and Priestap and Stein, all these key people. We're going to move ahead and start doing that, which is exactly what has to happen.
Congressman Jim Jordan's with us of Ohio. Congressman, are you familiar with the theory of a low-trust society?
Fill me in.
All right. So it is the notion that many people follow the laws because everybody else does. They look around. Their neighbors are following the law. So we follow the law. You follow the law, Congressman. People largely follow the law. It's not necessarily because they're afraid of getting caught. They understand the odds that they're not going to get caught. Congressman, what would happen if I was brought before a congressional committee and chose to lie to you or say I'm not going to give you that information or you'll have to wait or don't worry, Congressman, I'll investigate myself. I'll make sure I didn't do anything wrong. What would happen to me, literally, Jim Jordan?
Yeah, no, you would be in big trouble. If you lied under oath, you would be in even bigger trouble. Particularly if you would be in trouble, and everyone understands that.
May I ask you about one more thing going on in Congress? I know that you are busy.
To that point, Todd, you are right on target, and this is more than anything else what drives Americans crazy, and it should. The idea now that in America there are 2 standards: one set of rules for Todd and Jim and everyone, all us regular folk, but a different set if you're part of the politically connected swamp class here in Washington, D.C., and that drives Americans crazy. And worse yet, when you go to court, you have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. When the FBI took the dossier to the secret court to get a secret warrant to spy on a fellow American citizen loosely associated with the Trump campaign, they didn't tell the court 2 important facts. One, they didn't tell the court who paid for the dossier. Two, they didn't tell the court that the guy who wrote it had been terminated, fired by the FBI, Christopher Steele, because he was out leaking information, a cardinal rule that you do not violate when you're working with the FBI. Those are important facts. We go to court, we have to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. When the FBI went to court, they should have to do the same darn thing, and they didn't do it. And that is what bothers Americans more than anything else in this whole ordeal.
You're exactly right. I'm so glad you said it that way. I brought up low trust society because there are people who look around and say, wait, why am I the sucker? Why am I playing by the rules? Right? Why do I have to do this when these people don't do that? What pressures, what levers do you have? I know you've put together the resolution, and obviously we're going to back that. What other levers does this Congress have to force this branch to get right with the truth and right in respecting you as representatives of the people?
Two main powers. You have the subpoena power, bring people in. They have to answer questions under oath in front of the Congress, in front of God and everybody. That is the way it should work. So that's the point where I believe we're at, and we've been pushing our chairman to now bring in these key people on the whole FBI Trump-Russia investigation issue. Second is the power of the purse. We have the ability to tell these folks, if you're not going to do things the appropriate way, and this is what the founders envisioned. It's why we're one of the reasons we're the greatest country ever. They said the Congress can say, we're not going to give money, the same amount of money, to these executive branch agencies. And we have to be willing to do that as we move forward, or it will continue to be two standards, one for the politically connected and one for us regular folk. And again, it is not supposed to work that way in this great country.
Yeah, and I would add, I think, Congressman, that there is also a stark comparison between, the president has been a powerful man given his economics, the size of his business empire, et cetera. But there's a stark comparison between how Team Clinton has been treated and how Team Trump has been treated. It's stark and it's frightening, Congressman.
Yeah, it is. Let me give you one other thing I think is important, Todd.
Okay.
There was a memo written a year ago this month outlining the parameters of the Mueller investigation into President Trump. Then there was an addendum done to that on August 2nd that was made public in the Manafort court case. But when it was made public, almost all of it was redacted. 75% was redacted, except for the portion dealing with Paul Manafort. His lawyers wanted to see this information. Mark Meadows and I sent a letter to the Department of Justice saying we want to see that memo because we believe if that memo in any way altered the parameters surrounding an investigation into the president that the American people elected, we as the American people have a right to know the whole scope of an investigation into the president. Rod Rosenstein sent us a letter back saying he wouldn't show us that. When we met with him personally, he told us he wouldn't show us that. Federal judge got to see it last week. Judge said the same thing. I want to see that stinking memo. The American people have a right to know the full scope, the parameters and framework around an investigation into the guy who ran for office, 2 years doing it, was elected by the American people, is now their president. They have a right to know what is involved in this investigation. And for Rod Rosenstein to say, oh, we can't show you that, ongoing investigations, longstanding Department of Justice traditions that we don't show this to you. Baloney. This is about the parameters of an investigation into the guy elected by the American people to be president of the United States, and we want to see that stinking memo.
Jim Jordan, this is why I've had such a great degree of respect for you. You know the topic matter cold. You speak with a real American's passion, and you've just shared it with 25 million or so people, some of the most committed and loyal conservatives in the country, and we're going to stand in support of you. I can say that unanimously. Thank you, Congressman Jordan.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Rush Limbaugh Show is going to continue. Your calls, 800-282-2882 on the EIB network. Todd Herman filling in. Sitting in for Rush Limbaugh, my name is Todd Herman. I come from behind the great left wall of stupid. And we're punching through it. It's beginning to fall. 800-282-2882, of course, if you want to be on the program. Another thing that you need to do is if you've not joined Rush 24/7, this way you never, ever need to miss Rush while he's away. The membership gives you access to the massive archives of radio broadcasts, both those in the museum and those headed to the museum. You listen to the shows you've missed. You relive the moments you love the most. Membership to Rush 24/7. You get it at rushlimbaugh.com. Order today. You're going to get 4 extra weeks for free. Now, if you're a true conservative, turn those down. Right? Don't take the 4 extra weeks for free. Give them back to Rush. Let them earn in more obscene profits on this. Don't forget to download Rush's new app at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just had Congressman Jim Jordan on, introduced a House resolution for another inspector general to now inspect the FBI and the DOJ. You should read the resolution. It is a striking and dramatic and detailed takedown of a tale of not just two worlds, but three. There's the DC versus us world. And then there's how the DOJ treats Clinton team versus Trump team world. It's all in the resolution. One of the things we do in the local show, because I think it's very helpful, is to try to take things from the esoteria of D.C., the far back place that most people will never work in, and be thankful that you don't. I had my soul weighed when I came back from D.C. I had lost 72.9% of my soul, gone. Now I'm working on regaining it by not working in D.C. So there is that aspect of how D.C. treats themselves versus us, which Congressman Jordan pointed out. Then there's the aspect of how Team Clinton was treated versus Team Trump. The way I like to boil this down is try things in the real world. Try this sometime in traffic court. You go in, let's say that you forgot to put an insurance card in your car. In our state, you have to have your insurance card with you when you travel. So you get pulled over, officer asks for your proof of insurance. You say, oh, man, I forgot it. I'm going to have to write you a ticket. You can go to court, show that you had insurance, and they'll take the ticket off. So you show up for court one day. The judge asks for the evidence, and you hand him a card, and the date and account number are retracted, redacted, hidden, redacted. Judge is going to say, I can't see if this is valid.
It's not our tradition to share those details with the court, but we have done an investigation and have determined that we do have insurance.
Boom, you're fine. Or maybe you are held in contempt of court. Or, better yet, take the Trump team and the Clinton team and imagine them sitting in one room together. And the president could say, wait a minute, how come you kicked down the doors of my guy at 6 o'clock in the morning, even though he was participating, guns drawn, but you gave Cheryl Mills, you gave her immunity and allowed her to keep her laptop and allowed her later to claim attorney-client privilege. You take these things out of the esoteria of D.C., you put them in real life, and you can see how literally unfair they are on all of those levels. Because D.C. loves to do what the Royals did with tennis. You know the tennis scores? 15 love, etc. You know why that was designed that way? It was so commoners couldn't figure out the game. That's why they created the weird scoring method. So you and I couldn't figure out who was ahead. That's the same thing in D.C. Ron in Pratt, Kansas. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Hello, Ron.
Yes, thank you. My question is for the Congressman Jordan, whom you just interviewed. Instead of waiting for the Department of Justice to turn over all of these documents saying, pretty please, can we please have these documents, why can't the judge simply approve a search warrant and just go into the DOJ and take all of these documents in question?
Well, I'm sure it has to do with the supremacy of the Congress in those situations, that they are the ultimate, they're the ultimate bosses over these agencies. I think it's a good question, and it goes back to this treatment, this disparate treatment. So you'd like to see the Manafort treatment. You'd like to see Rosenstein at home and get a kick down to the door and guys go in and start searching the house?
Exactly.
Well, I guess
let's give them the same medicine they've been giving us.
I guess it would be equal treatment, right? Because I'm going to try this with the IRS. I think I'll send in my tax form, Ron. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I'm going to send in my tax form redacted. How much money did you make?
That's not my it's not my custom to share that with people.
Sean, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. You are on the Rush Limbaugh Show. It's Todd Herman filling in. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Todd. Nice to talk with you.
You
I wanted to throw a theory past you to see what you think.
Okay.
I believe the midterm elections are going to be a tremendous advantage for what I'll call like the Trump movement. For decades and decades, liberals and conservatives fought in a battlefield where liberalism juxtaposed conservatism. I think in the last probably 8 years, and I see it kind of very quickly escalating, maybe in 4 years' time, liberals have really been hijacked. The left has really hijacked their ideology. I think conservatives, Republicans are not conservative. Look at the spending. I think conservatives have had their ideology hijacked. So it's no longer really a liberalism versus conservatism. And I think right there in the middle, you have Trump and his nationalism, his America first, and really making America great again, serve to fill a void that draws in people from both sides of the aisle that have had their classical, liberal or conservative ideology.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to that. I'll answer it next in the Rush Limbaugh program. 800-282-2882, of course, the number to the EIB network. It's Todd Herman. Absolute honor to fill in, to hear from all of you. I love talking to Rush's callers. Just before the break, Sean from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, outed me as a rank amateur by not being able to answer his question fully before the sounder for EIB came on. My fault. Making a point that the president, as a form of centrist between conservatism and between liberalism, could act as an attractant to people who are otherwise going to go into one of those two ideologies. And I wanted to kind of answer that in this way. People in America get a bad rap for not being smart enough to trust their scientific instincts. Now, instincts and science, does that sound weird? We're all scientists, okay? We can all create a thesis or an hypothesis. I think things are getting better. I feel better. And you look around, you say, you know what? My brother-in-law has work. My sister-in-law has work. You know what? My son, who's in the military, tells me they've made incredible progress against ISIS. He's finally feeling like this tide has turned. I have seen now someone fighting back. I've seen a president who does not bow down to what is called political correctness, which is actually a form of selective tolerance or oppressive tolerance or repressive tolerance. It's a tactic of the left. The organizer named Herbert Marcuse designed it. It is that you are tolerant of only things that tear down America. Now, they may not know that to that detail because only weirdos like me read about Herbert Marcuse. But they can look around and say these things have changed. And that backs up then this hypothesis that they've formed. Then they can begin to test that with their friends. Hey, is the job going well? How's your company doing? And they begin to track that. So I do think people will be drawn to those results. Those results, you could view that as ideological. The tax cuts, someone wants to say that letting companies keep more of their own money is ideological. Well, it's mathematical. And the math is this. To what degree do we cut taxes until it lifts the economic output of the country so that you're getting a smaller percentage of a larger pool of income? And that's called the Laffer curve, of course, for those of us who are political geeks. People can look at that and watch that and say, this is getting better. My hypothesis is correct. We're good. I think people will observe that. To run counter to that, I beg the National Party, I beg you to come to, say, go to Portland, Oregon, go to San Diego, California, go to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and take images of what unfettered leftism looks like and show this to the middle of the country. Show this to people who are being told that if they vote for Republicans, they're violent, racist people. Show them Evergreen State College in our state where leftists, it's the sexual left, largely Marxist radical sexual left, took a professor, got him fired, grabbed the college president, held him captive, did not let him go to the bathroom, broke buildings, windows in the science buildings. Why? Because the hard sciences are racism. They've taken over every other discipline. They've got sociology, whatever that means now. Of course, they've got the political, they've got the literature. So they go and attack these other buildings, the hard sciences, because they want to take those over. Take images of that and say, this is what awaits you. And at least this president fearlessly fights back against those syndromes and fights back against those techniques. Even Democrats, and I can tell you this because I sit in the middle of the stew of leftism out here on the left coast, even Democrats are starting to say, this is nuts. It's insane. We let people block our freeways to force us to listen to them, but the president doesn't get to block people on Twitter. They're paying attention to this. Alan in Phoenix, Arizona, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Welcome to the program, Alan.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a statement. Why hasn't anybody in our Congress asked for the documents to be released from the IRS investigation with Lois Lerner? It would prove that Obama has used the government to hurt his opposition. I can't believe I've written our senators to release this. She made a statement stating that if these documents ever got out, it would bring harm to a family. I think it's more to protect the Obama's administration. And it would further prove that even during this Mueller investigation, that he's used the government to target even his opposition again. So I'm just asking, why can't we get these documents out?
along with the other documents that these senators are doing in their quiet meetings today are. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, Alan. I've been driven crazy by the Lois Lerner bit and the John Koskinen. Did you know? I think he may be reptilian. I mean, we may look into this, given the power of the EIB network. Maybe we could, sneak some DNA. I think he might be a reptilian, Koskinen, the head of the IRS, allowed to resign. Yeah, Lois Lerner said it would harm her family if the truth got out, if the documents got out. Can I point something out related to what you're saying? Because I agree. The reason I think they're not going after it is because they've got limited time. They have scandals right now that are threatening that people are using these devices, it seems, to take down a presidency, to hobble a presidency, to play politics with the midterms, to stymie progress, and more importantly, to stymie your progress. You voted for this. This is what the American people said we want. We want Trump. So I think they're focusing on that because it's a clear and present danger, an imminent threat now. So that makes sense to focus on it. But more to your point about that, notice something about D.C. When leakers leak, what do? They show the truth of D.C. They show, sloppy spending habits. Well, they'll leak that. So, guys on our side, Dr. Carson gets caught spending a bunch of money on a table. Right? Well, hey, guess what? Those things are in the budget lines in D.C. I'm not defending it, but that's the way business is done in that town. When D.C. wants to anger this country, they'll leak little bits of how business in D.C. is done. But they'll hide it when they've been the ones who've done it. Hence, Lois Lerner and Obama. John in Sacramento, California. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Hey, that's where EIB started out there in Sacramento. Hi, John.
I was here when it started. Remember day one. Great, Todd. Two questions. One is, why is it that the left never lies? They only misspeak or misunderstand the question. But the right, as in General Flynn, well, he's a liar. Clapper's no. Flynn's a liar. Clapper, well, I misunderstood the question.
Well, obviously...
Hillary, no comment.
Yeah.
I disregard. I misspoke.
Yeah. You make a great point. And obviously, this goes to the gamesmanship that we're talking about. And it goes to the self-dealing. What's your
but they don't
favorite...
ever get called on it.
No, I know,
like,
but...
if I was one of the congressmen, like the congressman you just had on, the question I would ask him is, okay, when somebody came for you and says, well, this document's redacted for national security reasons. They said, no, you bring it back unredacted. They bring it back unredacted, and it shows, well, the parts that were redacted before were not national security, but was just embarrassing.
If they've done that.
There, bailiff, handcuff him. You're under arrest. You just lied to a congressman. See you in jail.
Hey, I'm in for this. I am so tired of. I thank you for the call, John. It's a great point. I'm all in on calling these guys flat out and saying to them, look, it's very, very obvious that you lied. And I would give them this chance, though. You know what, John, would be fascinating is to give them the chance to say, okay, so you wanted to lie about the existence of this desk. Can we just get that on the record? If you admit you wanted to lie, I'm not going to charge, I'm not going to say you're lying to the Congress right now. If you'll just say, we were embarrassed about the cost of this desk, right? We didn't want the American people to know that that Andrew McCabe had spent this much money on a desk, or that Peter Strzok signed off on that much money on a desk. But we're nearing this point in our country, and I addressed this earlier with Congressman Jordan. I want to make sure everybody understands the principle of becoming a low-trust society. It starts at the top. Culture is set at the top. You're watching people at the DOJ and the FBI not follow the rules. Now, most of the FBI agents, most of them are patriots, and they're out serving this country. But how many people in leadership are saying, wow, you see what Lisa Page and Peter Strzok got away with? Wow, you see what Andy did? You see what Jim Comey did? You see this, what Mueller's doing? And that infects the agency. And there's no doubt across the board, it's not just the DOJ and the IRS. I give you Project Choke Point, right, where they were using the DOJ to choke off the ability for legal companies that sell guns to access the financial markets. This stuff flows downhill, and you get the rest of society saying, wait, why am I filing my taxes on time? Why am I admitting that my charity pays for my kids to go to school? Why am I doing any of this? The Clinton administration didn't do this. Low trust societies, right? That's where you don't want to be, because high trust, most people follow the law. Low trust, you get more and more people saying it's really okay to break the law. Everybody else is doing it. And I'll tell you, hand to heart, and I don't say this with any great joy, there is a different morality in D.C. You'll notice this. We used to have a game when we would go out. We would play girlfriend or daughter. Was one of the games we would play with older men in D.C. Okay, there you go. They're walking right by each other, girlfriend or daughter. And you, holding hands, girlfriend. Oh, mistress, they're hiding behind the tree. There is a different set of morality, and the American people are beginning to wake up to this. It's Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. Much more to follow. Hey, it's Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. Of course, rushlimbaugh.com, 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Tim in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how you doing?
Well, how would you be if you got to host? Let me ask you a question. How would you be doing if you got to host for Rush Limbaugh?
I'd probably be having a pretty good day.
You got it, sir. That's how I'm doing. Yes, so go ahead.
Hey, do you think if Cruz or Rubio or Jeb Bush had won the nomination and then won the presidency, would we still be going through some kind of deep state coup against anybody from the other side?
I think it would be a lot more subtle. And I'll tell you why, is because what Obama has done, and we talked about this prior to the election, he's embedded people in these civil service positions and gotten so active about maintaining the Obama legacy such as it is, which is that it doesn't exist. So doing things like Obama administration lawyers teaching bureaucrats how to slow walk their job, they would be doing those things and they would be trying to stall efforts, but they wouldn't be going full frontal in this way. That what they're trying to do with Trump is they want the entire country focused on Trump, the personality. And what they don't get and don't understand is that the Trump personality is baked into people's decisions. People looked at that and said, hey, you know what? Okay, so maybe I don't like the tweets, for instance. I have a lot of friends in Seattle. They like the policies. They don't like the tweets. So they will look at that and say, well, we'll focus on his personality, because the thing they can't afford, Tim, is to have people look at the policies. Do you agree that the left does not want people thinking about the application of Trump policies?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question. I think it would still be there, but it wouldn't be overt in that way. Tim, yep, I appreciate the call. Thanks very much. See, here's the thing about the Obama policies, is they thought they had won. So they remember the fundamental transformation? Will fundamentally transform the United States of America. They thought it had been done, and you came and screwed it up. You and that damn dog in that van. Oh, sorry, that's Scooby-Doo. Sometimes I get confused. We've been getting a lot of calls today because a caller in the first hour called to honor his son, who Rush Limbaugh honored. Rush sent this young man cigars. He was serving overseas. He lost his life serving overseas to defend you and me. And Rush still has one of these cigars that came back with this young man's effect. So we've been getting a lot of calls about Memorial Day. I want to take one more from Melanie in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Melanie, welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in.
Thank you so much for taking my phone call, Todd.
Of course, my pleasure. So listen, you had Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I say you had a Purple Heart uncle, fought in World War II. Tell us about that.
He fought in World War II. He had a fiance. He had several Purple Hearts, a lot of medals, and they offered him 4 or 5 times to come home to his fiance and his family, and he said, "I'm not coming home till this war's over." And he went down in the Philippines and never came home. So yeah, it's kind of, they are heroes. Those that do things like that,
What was his name, Melanie? Because members of Rush's audience are using a website to find graves and to ask people to go honor those graves this weekend. What was your uncle's name?
His name was Leonard Foster.
Leonard Foster.
And he went down in the Philippines. We didn't know that we couldn't find his gravesite for years, but we found it in the Philippines.
Well, God bless you, your family, and Leonard Foster. I appreciate that phone call, Melody. Thank you very much. I've one more remembrance. She brings up World War II. I've had the honor the past 3 years to take World War II veterans to professional baseball. In Seattle, sadly, it's the Mariners, but they do get to go to the game. Just kidding, Mariners. And the Mariners do an incredible job, seriously, of honoring these guys. They get to walk onto the field or sometimes go on a wheelchair on the field. They get to deliver a ceremonial game ball. I wish you could be there with me to watch the baseball players, to watch these men who are viewed as heroes by young people, huge athletic men. You've come sometimes forget how big baseball players are. To watch them change, they almost become smaller physically as these men are rolled on the field. And to a person, they are aware of who the hero on the field is. And I wish you also could have seen when I brought one gentleman onto the field. He was a B-17 pilot. There were other young people who were serving actively. They saw his pins and they saw his hat and they knew that he flew over Germany during World War II, and to see the way they treated him and went to touch him and to shake his hand. I wish you could have seen that. Something really, really heartbreaking happened. A gentleman came by who works for the Mariners, and he stopped to talk to this World War II veteran, and he said this. He said, I served as well, but it was only in Vietnam. Only? And I want you to know that the World War II veteran corrected that on the spot. He said, no, you served. And I asked that gentleman, why did you say only? As well, it's not seen as a war. Well, it is to us. It is to us. And I think that helped. I love that you're calling in to honor your loved ones. We'll get back up onto the news topics as the Rush Limbaugh program rolls along, including Trump, the poker player. And why do I say that the Rush Limbaugh show is a sign of American exceptionalism? Next hour is absolutely packed as well. It's time for kabuki theater. The Democrats in Congress have not gotten enough of standing on the graves of Parkland students. They want to do a little bit more of that. So I'll share that with you as well on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in on the EIB network. Thanks for sticking with us all day on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. I knew it happened one time. So the NFL out with a new rule. The players who don't want to stand for the national anthem, they stay inside. And if you kneel on the field, your team can be fined. I was just imagining Bernie Sanders kind of responding to this. Looking at the whole game of football, baffled, saying things like, some of these fellas are very big. I don't think they should be allowed to be that big and should pass on some of that size to others. But this is also an awful metaphor for the country. Everybody in that game is fighting over balls. And as they fight over the balls, the big men go at the little men who have the balls and chase them because they want the balls. And as we have proven in transsexualism, everybody... Well, I just make the point that everybody can have the balls. And this is a game of violence predicated upon something that can be fixed with modern medical science and the application of socialism. I just sometimes find it helpful to get into Bernie Sanders' head, as strange as that could be, as frightening a place as it can be. And right now, I'm deeply frightened. Need to step away from the mic. It's Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. And I welcome you. Thank you so much. Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh, 800-282-2882 if you want to join the program and share your wisdom with the rest of the United States. I'll point something out. Johnny Donovan just read a little bit of my bio. And here's how sick the left is. There's a guy on Twitter, and I'm actually not going to say your name, who is has no idea what we did at our internet radio company. None. But he took the time to tweet to Rush in the EIB network and me, there's no such thing as an internet radio network. That would be a series of URLs. No. And in fact, that's why we got it funded. The very thing, sir, you think we did, we didn't do. That's why it was successful. I love this knee-jerk reaction of the left, and it leads into this for me. Slate has published a piece, and I don't think it originated with them, but it should have because it's it's Salon, big difference. Salon.com has published a piece that is taking people to task for pointing out that part of the reason that the president won, that Donald Trump won, was because he was defeating liberal smugness. Blaming Donald Trump's presidency on liberal smugness is a tired trope. Can we give it a rest? Mainstream media remains obsessed with the notion that the left-wing intolerance is somehow to blame for Trump. No! No, my goodness. No, there aren't a bunch of Americans who are sick to death of being told that their skin color is to blame. I live on the left coast. I live in the center of the leftist beast, not the Democrat beast, the leftist beast. I'll give you an example of smugness and get to some on a national level. Then I want to hear from you and the callers, 800-282-2882. Our Seattle Public Library hosted a week-long event that they helped design. The topic was the problem with whiteness. The thesis of the event is the problem with the world is white people. And the problem with white people, and this is rather inconvenient, they're white. And so you have a circular problem. Well, I'm all in for stopping the problem of whiteness, so what do I do? Well, first step is to stop being white. What if I decide I'm a woman? That's a good start. What if I'm a woman and I have an anxiety issue? Getting there. What if I'm poor? Bingo. Welcome to the group. You're no longer a white man in the power structure. No, that smugness didn't have anything to do with the president winning. I'll give you another example. Smugness. The Democrats in D.C. intend to bring Parkland students in as to train them to be better activists. They're bringing them in, or want to, under the color of treating them like interns. Now, this is a very smug idea because it's continuing to stand on the graves of people and continuing to try to run against, they're running against the NRA, which is a bad strategy. But in all actuality, this would be a good experience for the kids from Parkland. I'll tell you why. They would be working in a city that for years has been completely under Democrat rule. Areas of that city are every week face the level of deaths that happen in Parkland, or every month, through gang violence. But don't worry, those parts of the city, I don't want to say are segregated, that would be wrong. But they're separated from, the important parts of D.C. where the important people are. And the Parkland students could see what it's like to walk into a building that has single entrance points, patrolled by multiple armed guards, featuring metal detectors, and with the full knowledge that there is a police force, the Capitol Hill Police, that does nothing but protect that body of people. And walking around the hallways, not to your knowledge, are plainclothes cops ready to take you down lest you cause a congressman harm or a senator harm. It'd be good for the students to see how Democrats treat people they are focused on protecting. It'd be a little bit different than what they've done in Parkland and other schools around the country. So no, certainly smugness, certainly liberal smugness, salon.com, had nothing to do with the Trump revolution. I mean, nothing like this. The woman who had sex on film for money. No, am I supposed to say porn star? Sorry. The porn star, the woman who had sex on film for money, has been given the keys to the city of West Hollywood, celebrated for her leadership. The so-called mayor tweeted, "Want to know what I'm doing tomorrow as mayor of West Hollywood? Giving Stormy Daniels the key to the city at 4 p.m. at Chi Chi La Ruse," which is, by the way, a fairly notorious restaurant in Los Angeles. Tweeted later, giving the keys to the city to Stormy Daniels today, and the right-wing hate mail is pouring in. Been doing LGBT rights over 30 years. Right-wing hate is the compass that tells me I'm doing something right. But no smugness. I want you to rest assured there's no smugness there. Now, this is sort of fascinating to me. In California, they've noticed, and also in the left coast here, they've noticed a weird increase in STDs and things like gonorrhea and syphilis and diseases that have been gone forever. And they are building these homeless camps where sex trafficking occurs. They are decriminalizing heroin, and now they are de-weirding a woman who, and I'm not going to get into the details, I'm not, but a woman who may have, honestly, could have hurt herself physically in some of the acts she undertook on film. I'm not trying to be gross. In fact, I'm trying to be the opposite of gross. So I guess the message here to young women is you too can be a leader. From the West Hollywood mayor, here's how to be a leader. Risk physical injury in undertaking an act of prostitution with multiple people on film. There you go. That's leader material. But certainly no smugness would be in any play in this in any way related to this election. Last one. Kendrick Lamar. Now, I have trouble with rap music. Some of it, I guess I'm an old school rap guy. I can I guess I can be okay with some Run DMC and some of the stuff that, like PM Dawn. I know that's like easy listening to rap people, and a whole bunch of people just laughed at me, and that's just fine because I'm fine with who I am. But Kendrick Lamar, I had never heard of, and I am not certain I've ever heard one of his performance pieces or raps. He brought a young woman on stage, apparently a young white woman, to, I guess, sing or rap with him. I don't know if he sings or raps, and I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't know. She got up on stage to sing his song Mad City, M-A-A-D City, with some periods in there, M-A, and you get it. So the chorus of the song goes, man down where you from, N-word, blank who you know, where you from, my N-word. Where your grandma gonna stay, huh, my N-word. And so the young woman did what she was told. She got on stage and she was singing or rapping or however it goes within this piece of art. And he kicked her off stage. Stop the fan. You got to bleep on a single word, though. Booted her off the stage. Now, look, I don't like that word. But I don't like setting people up this way either, because now what does this girl get? She gets smug hatred from the left. Now, what if she had said, no, I don't want to get on stage? She's such a racist, she wouldn't go on stage with Kendrick Lamar. What if she'd not said the word? Ooh, privilege. Doesn't want to say the word uncomfortable. But certainly, smugness is not an issue with the left or with entertainment in general or with the NFL. Speaking of the NFL, Michael from San Marcos, Texas. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program with Todd Herman filling in. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the program.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I was asked really nicely to get to my point, and I think I have a solution to this NFL, this kneeling in the NFL and disrespecting our country, our flag, and our anthem. Here's the solution. All those that want to kneel and disrespect our country, put them on a transport plane for 14 hours, and while they're on that plane, load them down with 110 pounds of military gear and drop them in the middle of Afghanistan and let them fight them people over there for one day. And if they're lucky to make it out of there, you can come back next Sunday and get on the field, and we'll see how you act.
Well, I think that would be a wake-up call. Let me ask you this. What if we sat them down? Now, this is because I get what you're saying, and I understand the anger totally. Let me ask you this. What if we sat them down to people who have survived nights alone in Afghanistan, 3 to 5 people stuck behind enemy lines and had to make it out? And what if we put the gear on them? And what if we had them go in the tear gas room? And what if we had them experience that, but then sit and hear from these men what they have been through? Do you think that would have the same effect as dropping them in Afghanistan, or do you still think we need the airdrop?
No, I don't think. Listen, it is a good idea, but I don't think it'll have the same effect.
Well,
putting somebody in a situation where it's dangerous, they immediately have a different perspective.
Yeah, they do.
And people want to disrespect our country, disrespect our men and women who served our country for hundreds of years. These people made these people. That's why they're able to play on the field, is because people sacrificed and gave their lives for them to be able to live here in America and pursue their dreams. And then they want to get on the field and disrespect not only the military, but our flag, the anthem. That's uncalled for. I used to be a football fan, but I'm not anymore.
Yeah, it's happened to a lot of people. It's happened to a lot of people, Michael. And I take your anger. I understand it, and I get it. I really do. I'll have a little more thoughts on that, Michael, when we come back on the Rush Limbaugh program. It's Todd Herman. My absolute honor to fill in on the EIB network. And we'll be back. Hey, it's Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh and the EIB network. You know, the network, it's as Rush says, it's a television network. It's a written print network. The Limbaugh Letter, I've been a subscriber for years. You should be too. The June issue, Rush interviews. I love to hear Rush interview because he doesn't do it very often. He's very, very good at it. He interviews Louis Gohmert, the congressman, and has written a devastating takedown of Mueller. He is also going through a joy of conservatism. This is so important that we not just critique policy, but that we remember the joys of conservatism. I describe it as being small government, big person. because I actually think along those lines, and a lot of that came from reading the Limbaugh letter. The Limbaugh letter, of course, make a great gift for Father's Day. You do this now, you get the joy of conservatism for free. You could order it all in the digital editions, print editions at rushlimbaugh.com. Just before the break, discussion with a gentleman with an idea of taking some of these NFL players, loading them up in a plane, putting 110 pounds of military gear on them, flying them behind the lines in Afghanistan, dropping them down, saying, good luck, guys. Give us a call when you fought the enemy and you defeated the enemy. Bring them back and see how they treat our flag. I had Michael Bennett on my local show. And he dropped in because he was working with a friend of mine. There's a friend of mine who is a rapper and a film producer, and he's really a terrific guy. He's a community activist, and he's a very, very, very level-headed cat. And his thing is getting young African Americans to start businesses. His thing is develop wealth. His thing is to raise yourself, to develop businesses and cash flow, to buy real estate, to go out and be what you want to be, to free yourselves from the shackles of subsistence living. And to his credit, Bennett helped out with that event. This, my friends, does this every single year. So when we had this conversation, Bennett came in. I had to ask him about his book that was upcoming, Things That Make White People Uncomfortable. And I asked him to promise to come back on the show and try to make me uncomfortable. And I said, at risk of my life, because you're a professional athlete and you could smash me, I'll try to make you uncomfortable. Maybe we can come to some understanding. My point about the NFL protests is, you know what a big problem I have with it is? They're not saying anything. You put your fist up in the air and people can say, you hate the military. And military people look at it and say, you hate me. That's my flag. I defend that. I know a lot of military people who take that very, very personally. Words are bravery. Taking a knee is not bravery. It's a sign that you're upset about something. Bravery is making a statement, putting yourself on the line to say, here's what I think. Here's the observation of facts I have. And then engaging in debate. That's bravery. I'll debate anybody on anything, anywhere, at any time. Because I'm not considering myself brave on the level of a soldier, but that's bravery. It's also substance. So one of the big problems with sticking your knee to the ground is you're not saying anything. You're showing that you're upset. Well, guess what? Kids who hold their breath at the thought of eating a food they don't like are not saying something. They're showing something. Be brave, put yourself out there, write a piece, get on the radio, say a piece, debate it, stand behind it. That's bravery. Philip in Redlands, California. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Hello, Philip.
This is a narrative that the mainstream media keeps pushing, that the NRA sells guns.
Yeah.
This is not true. The NRA defends your right to own a gun and to defend yourself.
This goes, Philip, to a larger point, and you're exactly right. Thanks for the call. You're exactly right. You remind me of something else, Philip. While we're talking about liberal smugness in the first segment, have you folks seen all the tweets of people saying defund the NRA? They're tweeting members of Congress saying defund the NRA. As if the NRA is funded. I think that, one of the things we could do to save the world is have gun camp for liberals. And it would start by getting them comfortable being in a room with guns. And we'd start the first day with guns in the room but no bullets. And watch them walking in fear. And you think I'm kidding. I have a liberal neighbor who came over to the house and asked, hey, are the guns in the house? I want my kids to be safe, and so I'm being respectful, and that's fine. I'll show you my gun safe. We went downstairs, and I opened up my gun safe, and I have a number of guns. And she physically recoiled, like stepped back. I said, no, they're not going to bite you. And she looked at me, and she says, well, you must like hunting. Yeah, I live in Seattle, and I hunt a lot. Yes, that's exactly right. So you go to gun camp, you get used to these things, and then you go to people camp. Because you know who's safe around guns? Is people who handle guns. Because there's a weird thing about us. We actually don't want to get shot. So if you go to a decent gun range and some greenhorn shows up, you'll very quickly have one of the trainers come up and say, no. But the left can't get this. It's because they don't want to get to know. Let me ask you this. Do you like snakes? Or are there animals you can't stand, like a salamander? Salamanders freak me out. So do snakes. I've had people say you need to get to know them. Pick them up. Touch them. Let them touch you. It's an instinct. And the left, or not just the left, but people afraid of guns, look at guns as if they're animatory. So I think we need that gun camp. Doug in St. Cloud, Minnesota, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Hello, Doug. Welcome to the show.
Fastest way, legal way to drain the swamp is you hold the elected officials to the oath of office they took to the Constitution. If they do not take that seriously and they do not take the oath to the Constitution the way they're supposed to, you boot them out of office. It's a legal way of doing it. It's called perjury. If you or I go to court and we make a promise or we say something and then we go back on it or lie about it, we're held for perjury. They should too.
Yeah, I've often thought about how you enforce a law that if there is a substantive lie, that you enforce that. But you're saying they take their oath to the Constitution, they're under oath, they're making a solemn statement, a legal promise to maintain it. Then let me ask you this, how is that enforced? Who enforces that? It's harder. Doug, thanks very much for the call. That's the harder part to think about. Man, there's so much more to get to on the Rush Limbaugh program, mainly your calls, but also want to talk a bit about Trump, the poker player. The greatest thing the president has going for him is that nobody knows what he's willing to do. But if you've ever played a game of poker, the person you want to sit against is the person who's always 100% predictable. Am I right? Isn't that the way you want it? Guys who can't bluff? People who can't spot a bluff? It's Todd Herman for Rush Limbaugh. So the president has canceled the meeting with North Korea. And this plays to one of the strengths that the president has had from day one. It's the strength of unpredictability. The United States has become sadly predictable when it comes to foreign policy, particularly under Obama. Let's go through the litany of things. Does it defuse American power? Yes, he'll do it. Does it redistribute power away from traditional allies now into people who are against the United States? Yes, let's do it. Does it allow him to grow power for the executive branch, to concentrate it under the executive, thinking that Hillary's going to be the next president and that's going to be forever? Yes, then do it. Does it bring money into the Clinton Foundation and his various donors and backslappers, etc.? Yes, let's do it. And on a grander scale, it is, does Foggy Bottom think it makes him look smart? Does Foggy Bottom think it would make a good term paper? Does Foggy Bottom think it would get them good grades at Georgetown University's School of Foreign Policy? Well, yes, then let's do it. Does it contain real-world aspects such as, can we actually force Russia to use the reset button? No, those are for small minds. We think big picture. Trump, the poker player, is the guy you don't want to play against. Unpredictability is the enemy of a game when you're playing against someone. You don't want to get into hands against someone who's really good at being unpredictable. Sometimes they're playing tight, meaning they're only going to go bet big on cards where they really have you beat. Or they might be playing loose, right? They're going to try things out and try to draw you out. That's a difficult thing to play against. The United States has not been practicing that. On the topic of North Korea, Lady Sim from Calabasas, California, originally from South Korea. Lady Sim, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program, and you know what? We talked last time, Lady Sim. Welcome back to the Rush Limbaugh Show.
Hi, Todd.
Hi, Lady Sim.
Taking my call. I want to make a comment about this North Korea situation and President Trump. First of all, President Trump, once again, you are commending job canceling this summit. He's a playing game. Kim Jong-un, no longer Kim Jong-un. Mr. Trump, I want to tell you something. You should call him from now on, vicious killer animal. You said it greatly in the MS-13. And the animal. He is an animal, period. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank God for you. Thank God for America. Thank God. And America, God bless you. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much, Rush. I'm a 30 years and Fiddlehead. Okay.
Well, I know Rush thanks you for the 30 years, Lady Sim. I know America is glad to hear someone bring some perspective from South Korea, and I thank you for the phone call. And how many more people are out there with full knowledge of who Kim Jong-un is. And when we're on the topic of animals, and we're on that very topic, we talked at the top of the show about liberal smugness. I would like to talk to the daughter. What was the name of that writer? I get confused. Was he the Esquire writer who said, I would rather have my daughter marry an MS-13 gang member than a Republican? I would love to sit down with that gentleman's daughter. I'd love to sit down with that man's daughter and say, can we review some of the acts of MS-13 whose motto is rape, kill, control? Maybe we could go through a pictorial. Now, if she's too young, obviously I don't want to scare her, but I have to ask how it would have felt as a daughter to have your dad say, I would rather you marry a narco-terrorist drug dealer than a Republican. Is that the way you make your kid feel better? Right? Is that the way you add sort of self-esteem? Or is it more likely that you go as a Democrat and you say, honey, you know, Stormy Daniels just got the key to West Hollywood. Now, a lot of parents would steer you away from a career of committing acts of prostitution with groups of men on film for money. But as we're reviewing this, your mom and I have given this a lot of thought. And we know you've got this great promise as a swimmer and as a mathematician. But we'd like you to be revered as a leader. So would you consider maybe looking at a career in that sort of sex industry? That's the smugness we're talking about. That's obsession. The Republicans in this midterm have the greatest opportunity before them to show off the hook instances like that. I can see ads that are just series of headlines, series of statements like that. There is a component of campaigns that you try to build your party up to a position of rage, of urgency, just before the election. So it has to be a slow build. You start with resentment, you start with anger, you start with feelings of disaffection, but you try to work those up to election point to a point of rage. Here's why. Rage will beget violence. Not violence, will beget action. Sometimes it begets violence, but rage begets actions. People will act on rage. I'm outraged. I'm going to act. But it cannot last a long time. Okay? Rage has a finite lifeline before people are exhausted from the rage and they actually can't feel it anymore. It becomes inert. It's like the alcohol coming out of your system after you're no longer drunk. They got to the rage point too far. When everything is an outrage, nothing is an outrage. When everything is a 10, nothing is a 10. Right? Gretchen in Long Beach, California, you are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Hello.
Hello, Todd. It's actually Long Beach, Mississippi.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No big deal. The Kendall Lamar story, it's not being reported accurately. My 24-year-old was there. And before he called, he said, I want to sing with somebody on the stage. I want to sing with somebody, but you got to know all the words. She didn't know all the words. There were other people that went up there that didn't know all the words. There was a guy named Ruben who knew all the words, and my son said, and his buddy said, the guy killed it. And in fact, so much so, the crowd started cheering Ruben, Ruben, Ruben. At the end, they wanted him back. But there were other people up there who didn't know all the words, and he's like, that's it, you're off. So it's a little fake news just to say it's because she was a white chick. She didn't know all the words. And that was his parameters.
Oh, but did he not say you need to bleep one word?
Oh, yeah, of course. And Ruben did. And all the other people did. But she got kicked off overall because she didn't know the words. She got up there and fumbled around, and he gave her several chances. She wasn't the only one that got kicked off.
Well, now I feel bad. Now I feel awful.
Well,
I picked up a piece of...
It's the clip, and it's what makes news, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you know any Kendrick Lamar songs?
Heck no, I don't listen to that stuff. I'm not 24. I'm 57.
I was going to ask you to perform a little. I thought, you sound like you're very together and not at all shy to be on the radio. I thought maybe you'd favor us with a tune.
To be on the radio, but no, that I'm not going to do. I mean, the most I can do is probably very old Phil Dunphy sound, and there you go.
No, we can't have any of that. All right. Yeah, I'm charmed by Mississippi, and I'm sorry that I misidentified Long Beach. I thank you for the call, Gretchen. Thanks for correcting the record. See, now, wouldn't that be the one time I make a mistake on the city when we had the different view of the Lamar situation? Time for one more call. Daniel, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You are on the Rush Limbaugh program. Todd Herman filling in. Go at it, Daniel.
Basically, what we're looking at with the hubris of the DOJ and the FBI acting as a fourth branch of government can solely be laid at the Republican Congress, allowing the IRS to basically walk all over them during the Lois Lerner event. And you can still see the inaction or inability to really prosecute these people who are abusing the powers of departments of government to attack me and you, because that's who the House of Representatives is. It is the people's house, and then that is the only oversight we the people have over these departments of government. And the Republican Party, in their inaction, allowing Obama administration to walk all over us, that's where that begins. That's where they understood what they can get away with.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Daniel, got to run, but I want to come back. I want to explain another dynamic that exists in D.C., because I think it's important for people to understand this, because I think it goes back to Trump, the poker player. Let me give you this hint. There's been this agreement in D.C. that you don't go after us, we don't go after you on certain things. You don't go after our donors, we don't go after your donors, okay? I'll get into that when we continue in the Rush Limbaugh program. It's Todd Herman filling in on the EIB network. Hey, what a fun day filling in for Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. My name's Todd Herman, and one more day I get to do this. I want to thank Rush. I want to thank Mike and Allie in New York. I want to thank Bo flying around the country, getting out here, I think. We'll get to see Bo tomorrow. On the topic of caller said one of the things to blame for the DOJ and the FBI acting this way was the precedent set by the IRS, that the IRS walked all over the Republicans in Congress, and I tend to agree. I'm deeply frustrated that Paul Ryan didn't jail Lois Lerner. As I understand, he can. There is a jail cell in the basement of the Congress. Most people don't know that. There's a gentleman and gentle ladies agreement in D.C. You don't jail us, we won't jail you. You don't go after our donors, we won't go after yours. Well, Obama didn't necessarily jail, but he did go after donors, and he started to break that template open. We're sort of nearing the gloves off stage, aren't we? Don't we need to defeat leftism? Isn't that sort of the whole purpose of the Institute? Right? It's a big question because it leads to big things and big decisions, and it's not one to be taken lightly. But slamming people like that in jail cells. But if they continue to thwart the law, if they continue to refuse legal constitutional demands from the Congress of the United States, I wonder what choices remain absent that. Right? It's a serious topic, and it's something that is worthy of reflection. Also on Trump, the poker player, is talking about that unpredictability. That scares the deep state. He is not going to follow the script. Right? That scares them more than policy because he's not in on the joke. I was working in D.C. I used to have Republicans and Democrats tell me, a Democrat would tell me, well, I can't stand Ted Cruz because he doesn't get the joke, but I like this other Republican because that Republican gets the joke. Invariably talking about a moderate Republican. The joke? Well, the joke is us. The joke is, hey, if the American people figure out we're raiding the Treasury, they might be upset. So there's that dynamic as play it well. Speaking of Trump, the poker player, Jim from Paso Robles, California. You're on the Rush Limbaugh program. It's Todd Herman filling in. You're going to want to turn down your radio, Jim.
It's off.
Thanks.
To get right to the point, do you think it's possible that the president got intel that the Rocket Man was going to cancel this thing, and so he beat him to the punch?
Sure. I think that yeah, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. Look, I think it's not only possible, I don't even know that it would need to be intel-based. I think the president has a better sense for those sort of things than most people would have developed in D.C. Because D.C.'s politicians and leaders, they actually don't make the decisions around foreign policy, except for Reagan, that famous instance of Reagan. And Reagan made decisions overriding Foggy Bottom. So I think the president he may have had a sense of that. Now, it might be as well that the president said, this guy's not taking it seriously. He thinks he's going to bully us. He thinks he's going to pretend to have dismantled a nuclear facility. That's not going to work for me. So I think that remains to be seen if he was pretending or not. We get to another call before the break. Sam in Wheeling, West Virginia. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. It's Todd Herman filling in. Hi, Sam.
Hi. I'm a veteran from the Vietnam era, and I'm disabled. My father was the third man to step on Guadalcanal, and I have an uncle that was a D-Day LST commander, and he was at Okinawa also. And my grandfather was in France in World War I. And I had another uncle that was in Korea, and he was captured. He was in the 101st, and he was captured, and his remains were found in China in 1963. And I had a son, well, I have a son that was in Iraq, and thank goodness he came home safe and sound.
You know what, Sam? Bless you. Bless your family. Do me a favor on this Memorial Day, as we remember the people who didn't make home. We give your son a hug from, and I mean it, from the entire EIB network. In fact, hug each other for us, because I can't reach out to the phone and hug. Well, look, we can have a man hug over the phone, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Sam, I'm not allowed to salute you because I don't have that honor. But I thank you, and I thank your entire family. And you tell your boy, welcome home.
Thanks. I do regular.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Look, this Memorial Day, we've had a lot of people call in. And this was a caller decision early in the show. Chris from Sarasota, Florida. He's a Gold Star dad. His son died. His son died apparently holding and carrying with him cigars that one Rush Limbaugh sent him. And when his body came home, when he came home, his father found those cigars. And I'm told that Rush keeps one as remembrance of that brave young man. On this Memorial Day, let us remember the fallen. I know there's the barbecues. I know those things exist. And part of that's important because it's the freedom for which we, the guys, men and women fought. But let us keep the actual meaning. I will wrap up the day when we come back on the EIB network. It's Todd Herman filling in for Rush Limbaugh. Well, tomorrow's Open Line Friday on the Rush Limbaugh program. My name's Todd Herman. Of course, it's been an absolute honor to fill in. You know, American exceptionalism, the fact that we decided to be governed at our own consent, governed by our consent. That is part of our exceptionalism. Another form of it is this program, or a sign of it. One guy with a voice and an idea could have gone the easy way, done the things that the consultants wanted him to do, that the existing power structure and radio wanted him to do, could have paid attention when people said, you can't have a national political show. That can't be done, right? That's not going to work. Could have said, hey, I can't work two shows. I can't work my local New York show and the national show at the same time. That's too much work. Could have done all of those things. But it's really only a country like America where one guy with a voice and an idea and drive can go out and build a legacy and an empire based upon those ideas and to build wealth for his team at the same time. That's a great form of American exceptionalism. I get to see you tomorrow on the EIB network. It's Todd Herman. Such an honor to fill in and to talk to this audience, to spend time with you, and to hear from you. And I'm going to be telling your stories later on today.